And when we are using it, we see, well, they are indeed intelligent, but completely different from human. For example, we as scientists, we are really good at connecting the dots and well-trained in all these PhD journeys. But on the other side, for human, really to read through all these literatures and capture the key points is hard for us. And also it takes a lot of time. AI really do that very great. So I would say, at least right now for us internally, really use AI as a co-pilot to do a lot of things people don't like to do and cannot do properly. Whether or not it really going to solve difficult problem in the future, I don't know. But for now, they are now good at connecting the dots.
Welcome back to the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast. I'm David Brühlmann, and we are continuing our fascinating conversation with Haotian Guo, who is the CEO of Ailurus Bio. In part 2, we'll explore the cutting-edge technology behind synthetic organelles and discuss how AI is reshaping the future of biotech. Get ready for some mind-blowing insights into the intersection of computational design and biological systems. Are you juggling the complexities of CMC development while trying to enjoy the beauty of biotech? Have you ever wondered if there's a way to simplify bioprocessing? Welcome to the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast, where we're diving headfirst into the very challenges you face. We're breaking it down, demystifying the jargon, and giving you the keys to unlock your full potential. I'm your host, David Brühlmann, and I get it. With 15 plus years in the biotech industry, I face the same challenges you do. There's a way to simplify and streamline so you can remove complexity, you can skip trials and errors, deliver without delay your groundbreaking therapy to clinics and market, and still enjoy every single step. Do you want to learn how industry experts and I did it? Grab a cup of coffee and your favorite notebook and pen. Now is the time to take your bioprocessing game to the next level. Let's smarten up biotech. So you're also using a whole lot of technology. You're using AI to develop. Can you tell us a bit how you're leveraging these technologies, machine learning, AI, and so on, and computing to develop your products?
Yeah, good question. There are actually several layers. So the first one, the easy one, people can imagine, once we're using synthetic biology, well, you could really synthesize lots of different DNA designs. And then we could go through a high super experiment to generate massive amount of data. The question is, what's going to be your second round of designs? Are you going to still rational design every bit by bit and write a sort of bioinformatics algorithm to generate your designs? Well, in the past, that's our traditional workflow until we reach a moment the traditional biophysical models fail to understand very complex systems. This is what happened to me. In 2016, we have a data set of 1 million different experimental designs. I tried to build a biophysics model for that. None of them worked. That forced me to go to this black box modeling. With the training from the physicist, you could imagine how I hate the black box, but come on, that's the only thing that worked. So this is a workflow we routinely use using data to feed the model, using a well-trained model to generate another round of design, go further. And there's another layer that for the development of GPT, we started to use all this language model really to accelerate our daily workflow. I could give you 2 examples. One is when our colleagues finish their experiment, they're going to do all this analysis and generate new ideas to bring to the brainstorm meeting. And in the past, people really need to spend hours of time to think what is going on, right? And right now, we have several pipelines to automatically understand what's behind the data and generate a report so we could read it. Only downside is usually those reports are really, really long if you have used ChatGPT. And we probably need another AI to read report to understand what is going on. So there's another issue for this is when we really do rational designs, For some time, we don't have the knowledge for specific components we need. We imagine this could be done by nature, but we do not know whether there's any report for that. And right now, we use all these AI tools to search for the whole internet to find the literature. And before, we really need to think about what's the proper search word for that. So I would say AI really helped us a lot on many different perspectives.
It sounds a lot to me that you're looking for the needle in the haystack. A bit.
Yeah.
A lot. What are some unexpected insights I've gotten out of this exercise using AI about your cellular systems?
So I would say we also have lots of friends, other startup founders in the AI companies area, and people talking about how wonderful, how smart they are. And when we are using it, we see, well, they are indeed intelligent, but completely different from human. For example, we as scientists, we are really good at connecting the dots and well trained in all these PhD journeys. You see some guy doing an experiment or study with mammalian cell, immediately you know, okay, there's going to be some opportunities to jump into yeast or Drosophila or E. coli bacteria, so on and so forth. For GPT, it's very hard to motivate them to go toward that direction. But on the other side, for human, we need to read through all these literatures and capture the key points. It's hard for us, and also it takes a lot of time. AI really do that very great. So I would say, at least right now for us internally, really use AI as a co-pilot to do a lot of things people don't like to do and cannot do properly. Whether or not it's really going to solve difficult problem in the future, I don't know. But for now, they are now good at connecting the dots.
Well, there is no doubt that the technologies have evolved a great deal, but there is still obviously a lot of room for improvement. So I'm wondering, to what extent do you still need to do validation in the wet lab? Because obviously our tools are very powerful to predict, but you need also a good model in order to get a meaningful like a meaningful result out of it. So how do you navigate that space, that tension between using as much computation and using AI and technology as much as possible, but then still making sure that what you're designing actually functions as you're intended to be?
So at Ailurus, we really try to do what we call sort of like a wet lab simulation. It's not exact the experiment people do. Analogy is for bioproduction, we're going to have 100 liter or 1,000 liter fermentation. But what people really do in the lab, we use microplates. They are completely different in all the perspectives in the environment. But the data from microplate could give a lot of insight for what is going to work or not in the following scaling up. So we call that as sort of a wet lab simulation. The question is, can we do this faster, better, more higher throughput? In that sense, that's why if any people go to our website, there are a small paragraph in our about section talking about the power of biocomputation. We really envision that design different pathways in the living cell so that the living cell itself could report all this data to you. Then we don't have to go through microplates well by well individually, but rather we could grow many cells all together in this really massive parallel way to generate data. So we have some progress already in this direction. Previously, when we do, for example, protein engineering or optimization for their expression level, many people need higher titer for their protein production, either using truncated version or doing some mutation or completely change the expression system. The sequence space is massive, it's vast. You cannot really just doing simulation on in silico or doing MATLAB experiment one by one. You need to combine the both. And in that sense, we have AI really powerful and also very high throughput to screen for millions of designs in a single batch as a pro library. In this way, we see in the future, probably we could really ship all this technology as a toolkit. Everybody could launch it in their lab.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing, there's still a need to do wet lab experiments to validate exactly and generate obviously also more data for your future models.
Yeah, totally. So there's a debate between whether we could lean in more AI with small amount of data, or we should need high throughput experiment anyway. Well, I think the conflict really relies on what's the cost. So if you could generate 1 million data, real data in the wet lab at the cost of today cloning cost, why not? But right now, of course, it's too expensive. So we need to do balance trade-off. Ailurus really want to do a lot of effort on this side. We could really reduce the cost, increase the performance of our wet lab capacity. Then people don't have to choose. We could just use the proper tools for the proper applications.
Yeah, you're making a good point here, Haotian, because generating data is expensive in our field. And not only is it expensive, it also takes time because the cells need a certain amount of time to grow.
Yeah, totally. Imagine like AlphaFold. Without PDB data, there's no AlphaFold. It took thousands of PhD and professors for decades. And well, nobody really paid for that. And they just use the data to train their models.
Yeah, that's a limitation in the biology field because it's pretty much impossible to generate as much data as we can in other fields to train huge large language models. So there is somewhere a trade-off. You cannot just make up experiments. You have to grow the cells. You have to have the capacity to grow the cells. Or there's a better technology coming in the future. Let's see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I hope we will be the leader for this, but it's still too early to say.
Yeah. On your website, you talk also about the 1,000 labs in a vial. Is that linked to that or is that similar?
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is basically to have one tube or one well in your microplate. Inside of this should be thousands or millions of different cell lines or strains doing completely different stuff. And in this way, you could really miniaturize your workflow, at least reduce the cost to culture different cells doing experiments. And also, there's a huge point about this is really, if you have so many experiments working at the same time, you really need to standardize them. Otherwise, if you have 1,000 different workflows, there's no way to do this in parallel. So that's why we do a lot of, for example, genetic circuits, biosensors to embed them into the cells. So we could just using the living cell itself to understand what is going on instead of everything have to go through a very huge, expensive machine right now, mass spec or chromatography, whatever. If everything could be done within the cell, way easier. Human just need to, pour the media.
Yeah, and technology is evolving. Who knows where we will be in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years. So I'm curious, Haotian, how do you envision AI and bioprogramming working together to make biotech smarter and more accessible in the coming years?
Well, there are two perspectives for this, I would say. One is really how accessible right now for this advanced technology today. One thing is AI. Everybody have a GPT-like AI copilot almost for free. Even you pay for OpenAI, it's just $40 a month. And before, when we started, we really need to have our own GPU computer center in the house to train out this model. Right now, it's so cheap. Another is, for example, everything we are doing when you turn things from programmable biology-driven assays, cell-based assays, to replace what's before you need a lot of expensive instruments. Many labs could do this in their own labs at very low cost, and we could spread this really fast. As a result, we will see much more data coming in the future, I would say. Imagine before, everything depends on the most wealthy labs to generate data. Only very few amount of university have the X-ray to give you the PDP results. But today, probably everybody could have their own assay in the lab running to generate enzyme activity, protein interaction at very high throughput, very low cost. In that sense, there will be much more data coming. We actually already seen this in the omics area, where NGS becoming really cheap and really accessible. Just see how many genome sequenced if we have the proper assay. Similarly, I would say in the future, data won't be scarce.
Yeah, let's see where the future will lead us. It's definitely exciting. I'd like to circle back to the beginning of our conversation about your career path. And I'm sure several of the scientists tuning in have brilliant ideas and are also thinking, should I start my own startup? What advice would you give to them?
Short answer, don't. Well, if I'm doing investment right now, I would say definitely, hell yeah, you should do startup. But honestly, for any individual person, doing startup is really, really high risk. And many people will see, well, the grass is always greener on the other side. But actually, if you jump into the other side, you will see so many messed up things. I could give you one example. When I decided, okay, I need to do startup, one reason is, okay, academia is very slow. But what I didn't realize is I did all my training in those wealthy labs. Money is never a problem. And when you start to do startup, day one is where is the money? Where is the funding, right? No matter whether it's you doing direct sales to get revenue by yourself or you do fundraising. And when you do all this stuff, I would say for us, it's a little bit easier because we provide services and products to scientists. So for direct sale, we are talking to our own kind. But when you go to do fundraising, investors, not all of them have scientific background. It's a completely different story. So it really requires the founder to learn things very fast, iterate their own software every 1 month, I would say, at least. So if you don't have the mindset prepared for that, it could be really difficult. However, I would say for undergrad students who didn't go through the formal scientific training, doing startup is really good. And there's nothing to lose because you don't have a reputation in the scientific community anyway. And you didn't spend 5 years doing PhD training. It's all the same, right? You could do startup or you could do PhD. I would say for that, it's 50-50. But after PhD, it's better to decide properly. It's better to have the mindset prepared, and good moment is important. Ironically, I would say right now is actually a good moment where the economy is bad and everybody has a problem raising money. So you could just focus on the product, the technology, the team. You don't need to worry about, another guy raised $100 million. They do lots of advertisement in the market. Right now, nobody doing that. That would be a better way for starting a company, I would say.
Wow, that's great. Thank you for your transparent and feedback and advice. Very helpful. And we have covered a lot of ground today, Haotian. What is the most important takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
I personally see a lot of potential in programming biology. No matter whether you program protein sequences, DNA sequences for direct downstream application, or like us to really program the behavior of cells so that they could be a really powerful productivity tool. This is what people envision for 20 years in synthetic biology. Before, I would say it's really difficult, not only because of there's not enough data, but rather you really need to be super, super smart and remember lots of stuff to have the building block and technique and the design principle in your head. And right now, with all this AI to help us, I would say it's really a nice moment for the whole workflow, as I mentioned earlier. And for people who are really interested into biology and their application in industry, I would say this is a really nice, exciting direction people should look into.
As we're wrapping up, Haotian, where can people connect with you?
So I'm quite active on Twitter, LinkedIn, and everybody who also reach us or personally me from our website where we have a contact us on the page. Also, I would say the easiest way to bring this to the top priority as you place an order and appear a key to our website, then I will see it immediately to process order with our colleagues. So Twitter, LinkedIn, I recently got into the Substack writing blogs. People can also find me there.
Fantastic, Haotian. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your passion. Smart Biotech Scientist, please reach out to Haotian. Check also their website out. It's a fun website. It's a nice logo. Just hang out there, read his blogs. And thank you once again, Haotian, for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you, David, for the invitation.
That concludes our fascinating two-part conversation with Haotian Guo. His insights into bioprogramming and AI-driven biotech innovation have given us a glimpse into the future of our industry. Thank you, Haotian, for sharing your expertise with our audience. If you're inspired by today's discussion and want to accelerate your own biologics development journey, I am here to help. As a fractional CTO, I provide strategic guidance and expertise to help biotech companies navigate complex development challenges. Ready to fast-track your progress? Visit brühlmannconsulting.com to schedule a free strategy call. Together, we can turn your innovative ideas into market-ready solutions. Until next time, keep innovating. All right, smart scientists. That's all for today on the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on your journey to bioprocess mastery. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. By doing so, we can empower more scientists like you. For additional bioprocessing tips, visit us at smartbiotechscientist.com. Stay tuned for more inspiring biotech insights in our next episode. Until then, let's continue to smarten up biotech.